I guess most folks, when they think of a massive tech company, they picture fancy suits, glass towers, and millions of dollars flying around. That's all true. But if you want to know the real heartbeat of a place like Nexus Global, the place where the noise stops and the truth leaks out, you need to be there at 3 a.m. That was my shift. That was when I, Arthur, the night janitor, took over. I worked there for 12 years. Nexus Global was one of those sprawling, shiny campuses down in the Silicon Valley area, big enough to need its own zip code practically. During the day, it was a zoo of young geniuses in expensive jeans, drinking artisanal coffee and talking about algorithms I couldn't pronounce. But at night, it was quiet, it was mine. I knew every loose floor tile on the 14th floor, every flickering light bulb in the East Wing, and every secret coffee stain on the 50th floor where the executive team held their late-night meltdowns. I didn't talk much. I kept my head down, wore the faded blue uniform, and pushed my cleaning cart. Most of the young kids called me Silent Artie. If they called me anything at all, they mostly just looked through me, and that was fine by me. That was the whole point. I made $18 an hour, plus tips around the holidays, which usually amounted to a couple of Starbucks gift cards. Nobody suspected that the guy emptying their trash could afford to buy the entire building if he felt like it. See, I hadn't always been polishing floors. 15 years ago, I was a tech entrepreneur myself. I founded a small data security firm that grew fast and got bought out by a giant corporation looking to snap up the competition. It was a good exit, a very, very good exit. I walked away with enough money to never work another day in my life. But here's the thing about being an entrepreneur. You're built to work. You can't just sit on a beach. I tried the retirement thing, the golf, the fancy travel, the endless days doing nothing. It drove me crazy. I missed the routine, the feeling of purpose, the simple satisfaction of finishing a task. So, I invented a new life. I moved across the country, changed my appearance, lost the fancy haircut, grew a small, unassuming mustache, and took a night job. Being the night janitor was my therapy. It gave me structure, exercise, and most importantly, invisibility. And in the case of Nexus Global, it gave me access. I was more than just a cleaner. I was the world's best corporate spy operating in plain sight. For the last 4 years, I had been quietly tracking Nexus Global. The company had great technology, but terrible leadership. They were drowning in debt and struggling to meet payroll for their massive staff. I saw the opportunity. I started buying up their distressed assets, their commercial loans, and eventually, a controlling interest in the building itself, all through a maze of holding companies and trusts. The main one was called AR Investments. The AR stood for Arthur. I was waiting for the perfect moment for the inevitable crash, and I knew that moment was coming soon. The quarterly board meeting was scheduled for exactly 3 weeks away, and the executives were scrambling to hide the massive holes in the company's finances. That brings us back to the trouble, which arrived 6 weeks ago in the form of Brad Cunningham. Brad was the new CEO. Young guy, maybe 35, sharp suit, slicked back hair that looked like it was shellacked onto his skull, and a smile that looked like it was patented by a Wall Street firm. He was brought in by the panicked board to streamline operations and slash unnecessary overhead. Translation: he was hired to fire people and make the books look pretty for the next financial report. Brad was a numbers guy, ruthless and entirely lacking in empathy. He didn't just cut big departments, he went after the pennies, obsessed with the P&L statement, looking for any line item he could erase. He switched the coffee brand from premium to the cheapest instant stuff. He started timing bathroom breaks. He even tried to charge employees for the paper towels in the break room until HR intervened. He was focused on the bottom line, which meant he was focused on me. The cleaning contract was a massive expense. We weren't internal employees technically. We were outsourced through a small local company, but Nexus Global paid the bill. My total team, myself and 5 other night crew members, cost the company about $10,000 a month in total salary and supplies. To Brad, that wasn't the livelihood of 6 good people. That was $10,000 he could use to polish his own quarterly results. He saw that line item and saw a future bonus check for himself. I knew I was on his list. I saw the spreadsheets he left open on his huge monitor in the executive suite. I saw the notes. Janitorial eliminate, replace with automation contract shift. I wasn't worried about my job, not really. I could walk away any time and buy a small island. But I liked the routine. I liked the building. And honestly, I found Brad incredibly irritating. He was the epitome of everything I hated about modern corporate culture. All ego, zero substance, obsessed with looking good instead of doing good. The confrontation happened last Tuesday around midnight. I was polishing the marble floor in the main lobby, which was a huge space with ceilings that soared 3 stories high. Brad usually left by 7 p.m., but he was pulling an all-nighter preparing his big presentation for the board meeting. He stepped out of the executive elevator, carrying a huge stack of printouts, and stopped dead when he saw me. He looked at me like I was a smudge on the glass he was supposed to be seeing through. "Arthur, right?" he asked, not waiting for an answer. He didn't even look at my face, just at the name embroidered on my uniform pocket. I stopped the buffer and turned it off. The sudden silence in the vast lobby felt heavy. "Yes, Mr. Cunningham, good evening." He didn't return the greeting. He just launched straight into the corporate jargon, like he was reading from a bad textbook. "Listen, Arthur, I need to be direct. We've conducted a comprehensive operational review of non-essential services. As you know, Nexus Global is facing severe liquidity constraints, and we are mandated to optimize our expenditure profile." I nodded slowly, leaning on the handle of the floor buffer. My appearance was perfect for this moment. Tired, slightly hunched, wearing glasses that made my eyes look smaller and perpetually weary. I was the picture of the easily replaced working man. "What does that mean, sir?" I asked, making my voice sound appropriately nervous. "That means your position and the positions of the rest of the night cleaning crew are being eliminated immediately," he announced, folding his arms across his chest. He looked immensely pleased with himself, like he had just solved world hunger instead of firing 6 low-wage workers. "We are switching to a much smaller automated cleaning service that operates primarily during the day. We project this shift will save Nexus Global nearly $10,000 a month. That figure is critical to our Q2 performance." He stressed the number $10,000 as if it were a fortune, which to him it was, a line on a spreadsheet that made him look competent. I just stood there, holding my mop handle. I looked at this guy, who was about to save his company 10 grand by destroying my quiet routine, and I felt nothing but a deep, simmering pity. He was so utterly convinced of his own brilliance and importance. He didn't know who he was talking to. He didn't know that the very building he was standing in, the building Nexus Global had been struggling to pay the mortgage on for the past 2 years, was now owned entirely by me. He didn't know that I had been sitting in the shadows, waiting for him and the rest of the incompetent management to fail so spectacularly that the board would have no choice but to accept my inevitable takeover bid. He reached into the inside pocket of his expensive blazer and pulled out a thick envelope. "Here is your final paycheck, plus a severance package equal to 2 weeks' wages. Effective immediately, you are no longer an employee of Nexus Global or a contractor affiliated with our services. I need you to retrieve your personal effects from your locker and vacate the premises tonight." He handed me the envelope. It felt thick, but it was still insulting. Less than $1,500 after taxes for 12 years of service. "I understand, Mr. Cunningham," I said, taking the envelope. My voice was low and steady. I made sure to avoid any hint of anger or resentment. That would just feed his ego. "Good. Now I need you to understand something, Arthur," Brad continued, leaning in slightly, treating this as a teaching moment for the poor, simple janitor. "In business, every dollar counts. You might think $10,000 is nothing in a company this size, but those small savings add up. That $10,000 is going to be the difference between a mediocre Q2 report and a successful one. Learn from that." He was lecturing me on cost savings. The irony was so rich, I almost laughed out loud. I looked down at the floor buffer, then back up at him. He was already turning away, clearly done with this unpleasant but necessary task. "Mr. Cunningham," I said, just loud enough to stop him. He paused, clearly annoyed that I was extending the interaction. "Yes, Arthur, I just wanted to say I understand the importance of cost cutting," I repeated. "Sometimes the cheapest option ends up being the most expensive mistake you can make." It was a quiet warning, delivered with the tone of a man who was just reflecting on his long life of minimum wage work. Brad didn't catch the double meaning. He just scoffed, shaking his head slightly. "Don't worry about the finances, Arthur. That's why I'm here. Now please, clear out your locker. I have a very important board presentation to finalize." He walked back toward the elevator, already pulling out his phone and talking into it. He didn't even look back. To him, I was already erased, a line item scratched off the budget. I stood there alone in the giant, silent lobby. The marble floor gleamed under the recessed lights. I felt the weight of the envelope in my hand. It was done. Brad had cut the fat, and in his mind, I was the cheapest, easiest fat to cut. I didn't go straight to my locker. Instead, I wheeled my cleaning cart over to the security desk, which was currently manned by a young guard named Kevin, who was halfway through a massive multiplayer video game on his tablet. "Hey, Artie," Kevin mumbled, not looking up. "Kevin, I need to turn in my badge and my keys," I said, placing the heavy ring of master keys and my ID card on the counter. "I've been let go." Kevin finally looked up, his face registering confusion. "Seriously? Man, that sucks. Brad is really a piece of work." "He is," I agreed. "Now listen closely, Kevin. I need a favor. You know that little storage room on the 55th floor, next to the executive conference room? The one where I keep the extra cleaning supplies?" "Yeah, sure. I left a few personal items in there, a briefcase mostly. I'm not allowed back in the building after tonight, so could you do me a kindness? Just drop the briefcase off at the main entrance tomorrow morning. I'll have someone pick it up." Kevin shrugged. "Yeah, man, no problem. I'll make sure it gets down there." "Thank you, Kevin. You're a good man." I knew Kevin would forget about the briefcase until the morning, and that was exactly what I needed. The briefcase didn't contain cleaning supplies. It contained 3 things: the official documentation proving AR Investments now controlled 51% of Nexus Global's outstanding debt, the notarized deed to the building, and the prepared resolution for the board. My little secret office on the 55th floor, the storage room, was the perfect place to keep my operational headquarters for the last few years. Nexus Global had been paying me to spy on them and plot their demise, all while I polished their floors. I walked down to the basement, where the locker room smelled faintly of bleach and old coffee. I emptied my locker, a spare uniform, a worn pair of work boots, and a few old paperback novels. Nothing of value. As I walked out of the service entrance and into the cool night air of the California suburbs, I looked up at the massive gleaming tower of Nexus Global. Brad Cunningham was up there, probably on the 50th floor, finalizing the presentation that would supposedly save the company. He was counting on that $10,000 savings to impress the board. He was counting on the fact that he had eliminated the unnecessary overhead. What Brad didn't know was that by firing the janitor, he had just removed the only person keeping him safe. I had been the silent, stabilizing force. I knew where the bodies were buried, and I had been quietly covering up the small fires and minor operational disasters that the executives were too busy fighting amongst themselves to notice. Without me, the building was going to start talking. The crucial board meeting was set for 9 a.m. 3 weeks from that day. Brad had 3 weeks to prepare his presentation, 3 weeks to bask in the glory of his $10,000 savings, and 3 weeks to enjoy being the CEO. I got into my old unassuming sedan, the one I kept parked a few blocks away so I wouldn't attract attention, and drove home. Home wasn't a tiny apartment in the bad part of town, as the employees probably imagined. Home was a quiet, sprawling estate tucked away in the hills, purchased under a different name, of course. I didn't waste any time wallowing. I had work to do. Brad had given me 3 weeks of mandatory, paid vacation, and I intended to use every minute of it to ensure his presentation didn't just fail, it imploded. The first thing I did the next morning was call my lawyer, a sharp woman named Veronica Chen, who specialized in hostile takeovers and corporate restructuring. "Arthur," Veronica answered immediately, "I assume you're calling to tell me the target has been acquired." "Not yet, Veronica, but the CEO just handed me my walking papers. He cut the janitorial budget to save $10,000 a month." Veronica laughed, a clear, sharp sound that probably cost more than Brad's severance check to hear. "Oh, that idiot. Did you tell him?" "No. I let him lecture me on the importance of cost savings. Now, we accelerate the timeline. That board meeting in 3 weeks. I want to be there. You want to show up as AR Investments?" "No," I corrected. "I want to show up as Arthur, the recently fired janitor, but I want to make sure everyone knows exactly what Brad has been doing since he fired me." I explained my plan. For 12 years I had maintained the building. I knew its quirks, its secrets, and most importantly, its infrastructure vulnerabilities. Brad had just cut the entire night crew, replacing us with a single automated day crew that wouldn't catch the subtle problems that only appear after midnight. "Veronica, the building is the key. Nexus Global is built on a foundation of proprietary data storage. The server farm is massive, state-of-the-art, and requires constant, subtle maintenance to prevent overheating and power fluctuations. I was the one doing that maintenance." "I thought they had an IT team for that," Veronica said, sounding skeptical. "They do, but the IT team works 9 to 5. The real problems start at 2 a.m., when the temperature drops and the systems shift load. I had a specific, unofficial routine. I would check the main cooling system vents on the 3rd floor every night. They constantly get clogged with dust, and the temperature gauge creeps up. If that gauge hits 85 degrees Fahrenheit, the system starts throttling back power, which causes data transfer errors. I was the one who kept those vents spotless. Brad fired me, and the new crew won't even know that routine exists. So, you're predicting a minor system failure? No, Veronica. I'm predicting a major data choke, and I want to make sure the board knows exactly why it happened, right before Brad gives his big performance review. We spent the next 2 weeks meticulously setting the stage. Veronica handled the legal side, ensuring that the documents were perfectly timed to drop the day before the board meeting. Meanwhile, I settled into my new temporary role, the silent observer. I didn't have to break into the building, I just had to watch it operate without its most diligent, invisible employee. The system started failing exactly 1 week after I was fired. I was sitting in a cafe across the street from Nexus Global, sipping a cup of actual premium coffee, watching the early morning news reports. The scrolling ticker across the bottom of the screen suddenly caught my attention. Major tech outage at Nexus Global. Client data access interrupted. It wasn't a catastrophic failure, not yet, but it was enough to cause panic. Clients couldn't access their stored proprietary files for several hours. The stock took a small dip. I smiled into my coffee cup. Brad must have been tearing his hair out. The second, more serious incident happened 4 days later. The air conditioning system for the entire North Wing went offline during a sudden heat wave. It wasn't a cleaning issue. It was a simple fuse that needed replacing, a repair that should have taken an hour. But since the new cleaning crew didn't have master access to the maintenance closet, and the maintenance team only worked during the day, the North Wing was shut down for 6 hours, costing the company thousands in lost productivity. The cost of that single repair delay? Well over the $10,000 Brad saved by firing me. The final straw came 2 days before the board meeting. Nexus Global had a crucial high-profile product launch scheduled. The presentation was supposed to be flawless, broadcast live to partners and the press. Brad was overseeing the setup personally, running around the 50th floor auditorium like a maniac. What he didn't know was that the auditorium's lighting grid was temperamental. If you used the wrong sequence of switches, it would short out the main stage lights. I knew the sequence because I had to fix the flickering bulbs every other month. I was the only one who knew the workaround, and I wasn't there to warn anyone. That morning, I watched the news coverage from my couch. The broadcast began perfectly. Brad walking onto the stage, beaming, ready to introduce the new product. He started his speech, talking about efficiency and cost management, the very topics he was obsessed with. Then halfway through his second sentence, the entire stage lighting system died. The auditorium went pitch black, except for the emergency exit signs. The live feed cut out instantly. The silence on the video was deafening. The broadcast went to a static "please stand by" screen for a full minute before they managed to scramble the house lights back on. The moment was ruined. The professional coverage was universally mocking. Brad was sweating profusely when the cameras finally came back on. He finished the presentation, but the damage was done. The narrative had shifted from innovation to operational incompetence. I knew that failure had sealed his fate. He had fired the wrong person at the wrong time, and the building had started to crumble around him. The night before the board meeting, I put on a crisp, dark suit, the kind that costs more than my annual janitor salary, and drove back toward Nexus Global. I didn't go to the main office. I went to a secured parking garage a block away. I met Veronica and 3 other members of our legal team in the penthouse suite of the hotel overlooking the Nexus Global Tower. We went over the final documents one last time. "Arthur, you understand the magnitude of this?" Veronica asked, adjusting her glasses. "You are presenting the company with a formal notice of default on the debt, the deed to the building, and a motion to restructure the board all in one sitting. It's aggressive." "It's necessary," I countered, looking out at the glittering tower. "Nexus Global needs surgery, not a band-aid, and I've already done all the prep work." Brad just gave me the excuse I needed to step out of the shadows. He proved that management is the problem, not the budget. "And you're sure you want to walk in there tomorrow morning as Arthur, the janitor?" "Absolutely. I want that look on Brad's face to be a work of art. I want him to know exactly what $10,000 cost him." I packed the briefcase, the same one Kevin, the security guard, had retrieved from my storage room on the 55th floor and left at the security desk the day after I was fired. It was heavy with paperwork, but light with expectation. I went to sleep early. The next morning, I arrived at Nexus Global at 8:45 a.m. The lobby was bustling with board members and executives, all looking tense and whispering about the disastrous product launch. I strode past the security desk, not in my blue uniform but in my tailored suit. Kevin, the guard, was back on duty. He looked at me, blinked, and then did a double take. "Artie?" he whispered, wide-eyed. "Is that you?" I gave him a small, confident smile. "It's me, Kevin. I'm here for the board meeting." "But you were fired," he stammered. "Sometimes, Kevin, the firing is just the beginning of the negotiation." I continued past him to the executive elevators. My name was on the list. Not as Arthur Janitorial Services, but as Arthur R. Sterling, representative of AR Investments. I took the express elevator straight up to the 50th floor. The tension in the executive suite was thick enough to cut with a knife. Secretaries were rushing around and the air smelled of fear and expensive cologne. Brad Cunningham was standing by the entrance to the main conference room, reviewing his notes, looking nervous but still projecting confidence. He was wearing the same slick suit and had the same patented smile, though it was clearly strained now. He spotted me immediately. He frowned, his eyes narrowing as he tried to place the face in the expensive suit. He didn't recognize me without the faded blue uniform, but there was something familiar about the eyes. "Excuse me, sir," Brad said sharply, stepping in front of me. "This floor is restricted to board members and authorized personnel only. If you're here for an interview, you need to be on the 12th floor." I stopped in front of him, the briefcase in my hand. I looked him up and down. "Mr. Cunningham," I said, my voice no longer the low, resigned mumble of silent Artie, but clear, resonant, and entirely commanding. "It's good to see you again." Recognition finally dawned on his face, slow and painful. His eyes widened, his jaw slacked, and the blood drained from his face as he realized exactly who he was looking at. "Arthur," he choked out. What are you doing here? You can't be here." "Oh, but I can," I replied, my smile finally reaching my eyes. "You see, Brad, I'm here to attend the board meeting, and since you were so kind to give me 3 weeks off, I had plenty of time to finalize my presentation." Brad was stuttering now, looking around wildly for security. You were trespassing. Get out of here. I'll call the police." "You can call whomever you like, Brad," I said, stepping past him toward the door of the conference room. "But I think you'll find I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." I opened the heavy mahogany door and walked into the room where the entire board of Nexus Global, the people who had hired Brad, the people who had signed off on the cost-cutting measures, was already seated, waiting for the meeting to begin. They all looked up at the sight of a stranger, in an expensive suit, walking in with absolute confidence. Brad rushed in behind me, his face crimson. "Security! Get this man out of here. He's a disgruntled former employee." I placed my briefcase on the polished oak table, right in front of the chairman of the board. I ignored Brad completely. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen," I said, addressing the room. "Please forgive the dramatic entrance. My name is Arthur Sterling, and before Mr. Cunningham begins his presentation on operational efficiency, I believe there are a few things you need to know about the company's true financial standing." I opened the briefcase. Brad was shouting now, his voice cracking with panic. "He was the janitor. He was fired. He has no authority here." I pulled out the first document, the Notice of Default. "Mr. Chairman," I continued calmly, 3 weeks ago, Mr. Cunningham decided to save Nexus Global $10,000 a month by firing the entire night cleaning crew. It was a costly error. Not only did that decision directly lead to the data choke and the disastrous product launch, but it also removed the last obstacle to my complete acquisition of this company. I pushed the documents across the table. As of midnight last night, AR Investments, which I own, has acquired 51% of Nexus Global's outstanding debt. Furthermore, the building you are currently meeting in is now officially owned by AR Properties, also a subsidiary of AR Investments. Gentlemen, I now own your debt, and I own your roof." The room went silent. Every single board member stared, slack-jawed, first at the documents, then at me. Brad stood frozen behind me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The chairman, a stern man named Mr. Harrison, picked up the notice of default, his hands trembling slightly. "Mr. Sterling, this is unbelievable. Who are you?" I looked directly at Brad, who was visibly shaking, realizing the full scope of his mistake. "Who am I?" I repeated, leaning in slightly. "I am Arthur. I am the man Mr. Cunningham fired 3 weeks ago to save $10,000, and now I am your majority stakeholder." I paused for a beat, letting the reality sink into the room. And effective immediately, I said, turning back to the board. My first act as the new owner is to eliminate unnecessary overhead. I looked straight at Brad. His eyes were wide with terror. Mr. Cunningham, I stated, my voice ice cold, you're fired. That sentence, folks, hung in the air like a thunderclap in a library. Mr. Cunningham, you're fired. The silence that followed was the deepest, most satisfying silence I had ever experienced in that building. It was deeper than the silence I knew at 3 a.m. This was the silence of absolute, total corporate terror. Brad didn't move for a long moment. He looked at me, then at the board members, then back at me, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for a hidden camera, or maybe just a trap door to escape through. You can't, he finally stammered, his voice thin and reedy. All the patented Wall Street polish had evaporated, leaving behind a scared little boy in an overpriced suit. This is absurd. You were the janitor. This is a joke. Security! I didn't raise my voice. I just leaned over the massive oak table, keeping my focus entirely on the chairman, Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison, I believe you have the official documentation in front of you, I said, pointing to the thick stack of papers. Brad Cunningham is no longer authorized to speak on behalf of Nexus Global. He is a security risk and needs to be escorted off the property immediately. I suggest you call corporate security now. Mr. Harrison, a man whose face usually looked like it was carved from granite, was pale. He slowly lifted his hand and pressed a button discreetly placed under the table. He didn't argue. He knew that the moment I produced the documents showing I owned their debt and their building, the game was over. Corporate control isn't about titles, it's about leverage, and I had all of it. 2 massive security guards, guys I had often shared an elevator with who never knew my name, slipped quietly into the room. Brad saw them and finally snapped. He lunged across the table toward me. You snake! You pathetic little cleaner! You did this! Before he could reach me, the 2 guards grabbed him by the arms, efficiently pinning him. Let go of me! I'm the CEO! You can't touch me! Brad yelled, struggling wildly. His slick hair was coming undone, and his tie was askew. It was a humiliating public meltdown, exactly what I had hoped for. Mr. Cunningham, I said, looking him straight in the eye one last time, my tone flat and devoid of emotion. You fired me to save $10,000. You should have checked the fine print. That $10,000 just cost you your job, your reputation, and this entire company. Learn from that. He didn't have a comeback. He just sputtered incoherently as the guards dragged him, kicking and screaming, out of the conference room. The heavy mahogany door shut, muffling his final pathetic cries. The remaining board members, 7 men and women who collectively represented decades of corporate experience and millions in stock options, sat perfectly still, staring at the empty space where their CEO had just been. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat, his voice shaky. He adjusted his expensive tie, trying desperately to reassert some semblance of control. Mr. Sterling, he began, placing the notice of default back on the table. This is unexpected, to say the least. We need verification of these assets, and frankly, we need to understand who you are. Why were you working as a janitor? I took a deep breath. The hard part, the drama, was over. Now came the business. I pulled up a chair and sat down at the head of the table, where Brad was supposed to be. My full legal name is Arthur Sterling, I explained calmly, maintaining eye contact with Harrison. As for verification, my legal team, led by Veronica Chen, is waiting in the building and will provide immediate authentication of all holdings. Rest assured, gentlemen, AR Investments is legitimate, and I hold the controlling interest in your debt and property. I leaned back, crossing my arms. As for why I was the janitor, that's simple. I was observing. I needed to see the operational reality of Nexus Global, not the glossy reports you were being fed. You see, Mr. Harrison, I tried retirement after my first exit. It was boring. I needed structure. I found that structure here. And in doing so, I saw that this company, which has brilliant people and brilliant technology, was being systematically destroyed by incompetent management, focused entirely on short-term gains and ego. I paused, letting my gaze sweep over the room. They were listening now, truly listening. For 12 years I heard your secrets. I saw the spreadsheets left open. I watched the mismanagement of funds. I witnessed the executive infighting. I didn't just clean the floors. I cleaned up the small messes that kept the place running despite itself. I was the silent stabilizing force, and Brad Cunningham, in his arrogance, decided I was unnecessary overhead and fired me to pad his quarterly bonus. I tapped my fingers lightly on the mahogany table. He proved my thesis for me. The moment I left, the infrastructure failed. The vents clogged, the data throttled, the lights went out on your biggest product launch. He didn't just save $10,000, he exposed the fatal flaw in your entire corporate structure. Nobody on the 50th floor knows how the company actually operates. A younger board member, a woman named Ms. Davies, finally spoke up, her voice laced with confusion. "So you bought the company just because you got fired?" I smiled. "No, Ms. Davies, I was going to buy the company anyway. I was waiting for the perfect moment of maximum leverage. Brad just accelerated the timeline and gave me the perfect dramatic entrance. I was waiting for the board to admit failure. His actions and the subsequent operational disasters sealed the deal." I straightened the lapels of my suit. "Now, let's talk business. The Nexus Global you knew is gone. The only reason I haven't filed the full bankruptcy notice is that I believe the core technology is still salvageable, but we have to move fast." I pulled out the next prepared document, the management restructuring plan. "My second act is to eliminate all unnecessary overhead," I announced. "That doesn't just mean Brad. It means the entire executive management team that allowed the data choke, the North Wing shutdown, and the product launch failure to happen in the last 3 weeks. I looked at Mr. Harrison. "Your chief operating officer, your chief financial officer, and your head of corporate strategy, they are all gone. They failed to maintain basic operational integrity. They failed to manage the debt. They failed to manage the building. They are fired, effective immediately." The board members gasped. This wasn't just a CEO replacement, this was a corporate decapitation. "We can't operate without an executive team," Mr. Harrison protested, pounding his fist lightly on the table. "This is reckless." "It would be reckless to keep them," I countered instantly. "They are the reason Nexus Global is worth less than the paper their contracts are written on." "Don't worry, Mr. Harrison, I didn't come unprepared." I signaled to the door. On cue, Veronica Chen and 3 other sharp, no-nonsense lawyers walked in, carrying their own briefcases. "These are the new interim managers," I stated, introducing Veronica as the interim CEO and head of restructuring. "They will stabilize the finances and operational flow. They are loyal to AR investments and, crucially, they are focused on efficiency, not ego." I looked around the table. "You all have a choice. You can fight this hostile takeover, which will immediately lead to the full bankruptcy filing, and you will lose everything. Or you can cooperate. I'm offering you the chance to retain your board seats, provided you sign a pledge to support the full restructuring plan and remove all resistance to AR investments." I gave them 5 minutes to read the pledge. The silence returned, filled only by the rustling of paper. They looked defeated. They had been outmaneuvered by the guy who used to empty their trash cans. Mr. Harrison, after a tense moment, picked up a pen. "You win, Mr. Sterling, but you must understand the gravity of taking over a company this size. What is your vision? What is your long-term plan?" I signed the restructuring document. "My long-term plan is simple. Stop losing money and start respecting the people who do the real work. I am not a CEO in the traditional sense. I am an owner and an operator. For the next 6 months, I will be cleaning house, literally and figuratively." I stood up. "The board meeting is adjourned. Mr. Harrison, you will work with Ms. Chen to ensure a smooth transition. I will be in touch." I gathered my briefcase and walked out of the conference room, leaving the stunned board members to deal with Veronica, who was already laying down the law with a quiet ferocity that made Brad look like a puppy. When I stepped out onto the 50th floor, the chaos was already starting. News of Brad's firing and the mysterious takeover had leaked. Secretaries were crying and managers were huddled in groups, whispering into their phones. I walked past the executive assistant desk, where Brad's assistant, a young woman named Sarah, looked utterly bewildered. She recognized me now, not the janitor, but the man who had just blown up her career path. I paused. "Sarah, you're a good worker. You're organized and efficient. You're not fired. Report to Ms. Chen in the conference room. You're going to be busy." Her jaw dropped. "Me? But I worked for Brad." "Exactly," I said. "You know where everything is. That makes you valuable. Unlike Brad, I value competence over loyalty." I headed straight for the service elevator, ignoring the stairs. I needed to get away from the immediate panic and back to where I felt most comfortable, the shadows. I took the elevator up to the 55th floor. I didn't go to the executive lounge. I went straight to the small windowless storage room next to the executive conference room, my old headquarters. The room was small, filled with mops, buckets, and industrial cleaning solutions. Kevin, the security guard, had retrieved the briefcase, but the room itself was untouched. It still smelled faintly of lemon-scented polish. I closed the door, locked it from the inside, and sank onto an upside-down bucket. I pulled out my phone and called Veronica. "It's done," I told her. "The board signed the pledge. Harrison is cooperating. Brad is currently throwing a fit in the security office, demanding to speak to his lawyer," Veronica reported, her voice calm and professional. "What are your instructions for the first week?" "First instruction, restore the cleaning crew," I said immediately. "Call the old contract company. Hire back Arthur and the 5 others, but double their pay. They are now internal employees, not contractors, and they report directly to me. I want the building spotless inside and out, and make sure those cooling system vents on the 3rd floor are checked tonight." "Understood. And for the executives? Start digging into the CFO's books. I suspect some serious discrepancies. Also, I need a new office, but not the CEO suite. That place is a monument to ego. Find me a quiet central location where I can observe the entire operation." "I think I know just the place," Veronica replied, a hint of amusement in her voice. I hung up the phone and looked around the cramped, dusty storage room. I was the majority shareholder of a multi-billion-dollar tech company, and my current office was a janitor's closet. The irony was sweet. Over the next few days, the story exploded. The janitor who bought the company. Silent Artie, the corporate spy in blue. CEO fired by the man he fired. The media frenzy was intense. Reporters camped out on the lawn of Nexus Global. They tried to find me, but I was invisible again. I had taken up residence in my new office, which Veronica had quickly prepared. It wasn't a corner office. It was a spacious but nondescript room on the 14th floor, the exact center of the building. It had no view, but it had access to all the internal stairwells and service corridors. It was the perfect place to watch without being watched. I spent the first week doing what I did best, observing and fixing the fundamentals. I walked the building every night, just like old times, but now I wore my suit. I wasn't pushing a mop. I was checking systems, talking to the technicians, and most importantly, talking to the employees. The atmosphere among the rank-and-file employees had completely changed. The fear that Brad had instilled was replaced by a kind of stunned, nervous hope. They loved the story of the janitor who took over. It was corporate justice delivered with a mop handle. One night I ran into my old crew. They were back in their blue uniforms, polishing the lobby. They looked healthier, happier. They were being paid fairly, and they had benefits. "Arthur," one of the guys, a heavy-set man named Mike, grinned when he saw me. "Man, I still can't believe it. You're the owner? You were cleaning up after us for 12 years? "I was," I confirmed, leaning against the wall. "And I'll still be checking your work, Mike. I expect those marble floors to shine." Mike laughed heartily. "You got it, boss. But hey, why are you still walking around at 2 a.m.? You own the place. You should be sleeping." "I can't sleep, Mike," I admitted. "I still need the routine, and besides, I need to make sure the building is running right. Brad almost broke the entire system just to save a few bucks." Mike nodded seriously. "Yeah, that guy was a disaster. You know that new day crew he hired? They didn't know anything about the vents on the 3rd floor. They were already baking the servers when we got back in here. We spent 2 full shifts just cooling that place down." I nodded. That confirmed it. Brad's cost-cutting wasn't just short-sighted. It was actively destructive. As the days turned into the 2nd week of the new regime, Veronica and her team started unearthing the true horrors of the previous management. It wasn't just operational incompetence, it was outright financial deception. Arthur, the CFO, was cooking the books to hide the true scale of the debt, Veronica reported during our daily 7 a.m. meeting in my 14th floor office. They were using operational funds to service high-interest loans, which is why they were so desperate to slash budgets like the janitorial contract. So the $10,000 savings was literally the difference between making the interest payment and defaulting early, I asked. "Pretty much," she confirmed. "Brad saw you as the sacrificial lamb that kept him afloat for 3 more weeks. He had no idea you were the shark circling the boat." "Good," I said. "Now, let's talk about the talent. Who are the real brains here? The people doing the actual innovation. I had always known Nexus Global had great people. I had seen them working late, frustrated by the bureaucratic nonsense above them. Now, I had the power to elevate them. I started walking the floors during the day. This was new. Seeing me in a suit talking to employees was a shock to everyone. I wasn't Silent Artie anymore. I was Arthur Sterling, the guy who knew exactly what they did and what they needed. I found a young engineer on the 22nd floor who had developed a groundbreaking algorithm, but whose project had been shelved because Brad thought it was too speculative for the quarterly report. I immediately funded his project and promoted him to lead the new innovation lab. I promoted Sarah, Brad's former assistant, to be my personal executive liaison. She was sharp, loyal to the company, and terrified of me, which was a helpful combination initially. The biggest challenge wasn't the finances, it was the morale. People were used to being ignored and abused. I had to prove that this wasn't just a corporate coup, but a fundamental change in philosophy. I announced my first major policy change, the return of the premium coffee. It sounds small, I know, but the cheers in the break rooms when the fancy espresso machines were wheeled back in were deafening. It was a visible, immediate sign that the era of penny-pinching cruelty was over. Then came the bigger announcement. The building was being renovated. Not just the fancy executive suites, but the break rooms, the server racks, and the maintenance systems. Everything I knew was broken or outdated was getting fixed, starting with the third-floor cooling vents. 3 weeks after I fired Brad, I called a company-wide meeting in the main auditorium, the same auditorium where the lights had failed during the product launch. I walked onto the stage, which now had perfectly working lights, and looked out at the thousands of employees. There was no stage lighting failure this time. 3 weeks ago, I began, my voice amplified clearly across the room. This company was on the verge of total collapse. It was run by people who valued their bonuses more than your work. They valued appearances more than performance. I paused. You all know my story now. You know I was the night janitor. And I know every single one of you because I saw you working when the executives were long gone. I saw your dedication. Brad Cunningham and the previous management team believed that the janitorial crew was unnecessary overhead, I stated. They calculated that saving $10,000 a month by firing 6 good people was a smart financial move. They were wrong. That decision cost them this company. It cost them their careers, and it cost them their reputations. I looked directly into the camera broadcasting the speech to the remote offices. I am Arthur Sterling. I am the owner of Nexus Global, and I am here to tell you 2 things. First, we are solvent. We are debt-free, and we are rebuilding from the ground up. Second, I will never again allow this company to be run by people who don't understand the value of every single employee, from the cleaning crew to the coding team. The work done on the floors is just as vital as the work done in the server room. If the foundation is dirty, the structure will crumble. I announced the new management structure, a lean, performance-based team focused on long-term growth and employee retention. I announced massive investments in research and development, and then I made the final, symbolic move. Today, I am proud to announce that the 6 members of the former night cleaning crew, including myself, are being honored for their 12 years of service and dedication. They are receiving a bonus package reflective of their crucial contribution to keeping this infrastructure operational. I didn't need the money, of course, but Mike and the others did. And the message it sent to the rest of the company was priceless. The applause was deafening. It was the sound of a company finding its soul again. Meanwhile, Brad Cunningham's life had become a living hell. He was the face of the biggest corporate humiliation story of the year. He was being sued by the board members he had misled and investigated by the SEC for the financial irregularities Veronica had uncovered. He tried to spin the story. He went on cable news and claimed I was a corporate saboteur who had rigged the building's failures. But I had the facts. And I had the perfect visual proof. During one of his televised interviews, I had Veronica leak the exact figures, the total cost of the repairs and lost productivity resulting from the 3 weeks without the night cleaning crew, the data choke, the North Wing shutdown, the product launch failure, totaled nearly $1.2 million. Brad saved $10,000. He cost the company $1.2 million. The number was a staggering, irrefutable monument to his incompetence. His reputation was ruined. No one in Silicon Valley would ever touch him again. The man who was obsessed with the bottom line had failed the basic arithmetic test. A few months later, things had settled down. Nexus Global was stable, profitable, and growing again. The atmosphere was focused, healthy, and happy. I was sitting in my 14th floor office late one evening, reviewing architectural blueprints for the new server farm expansion. My phone buzzed. It was Veronica. "Arthur, I have something interesting for you," she said. Brad Cunningham's lawyers just contacted us. He's broke, completely ruined. All those expensive suits and fancy cars, repossessed. He's asking for a settlement. A settlement for what? I asked, looking up from the plans. He claims emotional distress and wrongful termination, Veronica explained, her voice dry. He wants enough money to pay off his immediate debts and move out of the city. He's asking for $100,000. I chuckled. Brad was asking for 10 times the amount he had tried to save by firing me. Tell him no, Veronica, I said simply. I figured you would say that, but he's desperate. His lawyers said he's willing to take any job, anything to survive. I thought about it for a long moment. Brad, the brilliant, ruthless CEO, reduced to begging for a handout from the man he scorned. Wait, Veronica, I said. Don't tell him no. Tell him I have a job for him. Veronica was quiet for a beat. A job? Arthur, you can't be serious. He's toxic. Not in management, no, I agreed. But he understands routine and he needs structure just like I did. And he needs to learn the true value of work. What job could he possibly do here now? I smiled, looking around my immaculate office. Tell him I'm looking to hire a new day porter for the executive floor. It's minimum wage, no benefits, and the uniform is orange. He starts at 7 a.m. And tell him if he leaves a single streak on the glass, I'll fire him. You want Brad Cunningham to clean the 50th floor? Veronica asked, sounding utterly delighted. I want him to learn what $10,000 really means, Veronica, I confirmed. I want him to understand the true cost of unnecessary overhead, and I want him to know that I'll be watching, closely. I hung up the phone and looked out my window, not at the city, but at the reflection of my own face. I wasn't the tired, hunched janitor anymore. I was the owner, the operator, the guy who finally got to fix the mess he'd been cleaning for 12 years. The next morning, I was back on the 50th floor, early, sipping my premium coffee. I was waiting outside the executive conference room. Sure enough, at 7:05 a.m., the service elevator doors opened and out stepped Brad Cunningham. He was wearing a cheap, ill-fitting orange polo shirt that clashed horribly with his expensive slacks. He looked defeated, hollowed out, but he was there. In his hand, he held a bucket and a cheap bottle of surface cleaner. He saw me immediately. He stopped dead, his face a mask of shame and resentment. Good morning, Brad, I greeted him cheerfully. Welcome to the Nexus Global team. I trust you read the employee handbook? He didn't answer. He just stared at the floor. You're late, by the way, I noted, checking my watch. Punctuality is critical here. Now that mahogany table in the conference room, it needs to be polished. And don't forget the dusting. We value attention to detail here, Brad. He nodded, a barely perceptible dip of his head. He was broken. And Brad, I added, just as he started to push his bucket toward the conference room door. He paused, looking back at me with weary, defeated eyes. I'm doubling your pay, I said. You're now making $36 an hour. His eyes widened in surprise. Well, why? He stammered. Because I believe in fair wages for honest work, I explained, leaning in conspiratorially. And frankly, Brad, I need to make sure you can afford the best quality cleaning supplies. We wouldn't want the cheapest option ending up being the most expensive mistake, would we? I watched him walk into the conference room, the once proud CEO now scrubbing the very table where he had signed his own termination papers. I knew that $10,000 meant more to him now than any $1,000,000 bonus ever had. He was learning the lesson of the silent janitor, one polished surface at a time. The real work had just begun. I had bought the company, but now I had to run it and make sure that this time it was built to last. And I needed to make sure Brad never forgot the true cost of cutting corners. It took 6 months for the dust to truly settle at Nexus Global, and I mean that literally. The media coverage eventually died down, though I was still occasionally featured in business magazines, always with the headline, The Janitor CEO. I hated the title, not because of the janitor part, but because I wasn't a CEO. I was the owner, the chief operator, the guy who made sure the plumbing worked and the lights stayed on. My life wasn't simpler now. It was infinitely more complex. I was dealing with mergers, international law, and billion-dollar valuations. The stress was different. When I was the janitor, the worst thing that could happen was a clogged toilet. Now the worst thing was tanking the global economy, but I still kept my routine. I moved my office again. The 14th floor was too loud. I found a small, quiet space on the 3rd floor, right next to the server farm cooling system. It was cool, smelled faintly of ozone, and had the constant, comforting whir of powerful machinery, the heartbeat of the company. I could hear the temperature fluctuations. I could feel the efficiency. I was still walking the building every night, but now I had a purpose that went beyond just cleaning. I was checking in on my investment, the people and the infrastructure. Mike and the original cleaning crew were thriving. They had formed a bond with the maintenance engineers, sharing knowledge and ensuring that the operational side of the building ran like a Swiss watch. They were the true guardians of the infrastructure, and now they were respected and paid as such. The young engineer I promoted, his algorithm launched and revolutionized the way our clients handled data security. Nexus Global's stock, which had been in the toilet when Brad was running things, soared past all expectations. The entire industry was buzzing, not about some flashy new product, but about stability, security, and consistent performance. I had proven my theory. Competence at the fundamental level always wins over ego at the executive level. And then there was Brad. He was still working on the 50th floor, the former king now reduced to polishing the brass plaque on the elevator doors. His orange polo shirt, though clean, seemed to mock his expensive background. I didn't often seek him out, but I would see him. He avoided eye contact, maneuvering his cleaning cart with a grim determination. He was efficient. I'll give him that. He was used to long hours, and he had learned the hard way that cutting corners only led to more work later. I kept him on the 50th floor deliberately. It was his penance. Every day, he walked past the vacant, spotless office that used to be his, past the boardroom where his fate was decided, and past the very spot where he had handed me that insulting severance envelope. He was a silent reminder to the few remaining executives from the old guard. Respect the work, or you'll be doing it yourself. One afternoon, about 8 months into the new regime, I was heading up to the 50th floor for a meeting with Veronica, who was doing an exceptional job as interim CEO. I stepped off the elevator, and Brad was right there, kneeling, scrubbing a particularly stubborn scuff mark on the marble. He didn't look up, but he knew I was there. "Mr. Cunningham," I said, my voice neutral. He slowly stood up, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow with the back of a gloved hand. He looked tired, but leaner, harder. The slick shellac on his hair was gone. It was just short, practical hair now. "Mr. Sterling," he replied, his voice flat. He didn't offer any excuses, any complaints. He had accepted his fate. "How are the floors today?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Spotless," he reported, gesturing to the gleaming marble. "I found a new cleaning solution that works better on this particular stone, cuts down on the buffing time. Efficiency," I noted with a slight smile. "You are finally learning the value of efficiency, Brad." He nodded stiffly. "I am. I also noticed the temperature gauge on the executive server closet was creeping up this morning. I called maintenance before it tripped the alarm." I raised an eyebrow. He was doing my old job, catching the subtle operational failures before they became disasters. "Good job, Brad," I said. "That's exactly the kind of vigilance this company needs." He just looked down at his bucket. After a moment, he spoke, his voice low. "Mr. Sterling, why the $36 an hour?" I knew he meant the pay raise I gave him, double the minimum wage. It was the only part of his new reality that didn't make sense to him. "Why reward the man who tried to ruin you?" "Because, Brad," I explained, leaning against the wall, adopting the conversational, mentoring tone I used to use when training new janitors. "You are doing an honest, necessary job. You are competent at it. And every job, no matter how small, deserves a fair wage. You are proving your worth to the company every day by keeping this floor operational." I paused, letting him absorb that. "But more importantly," I continued, "it's a reminder. That extra $18 an hour, that's about what I made for 12 years, watching you and your team destroy this company. I want you to remember that the difference between the janitor who keeps the place running and the CEO who ruins it is often just a matter of who respects the work and who respects the paycheck." He didn't argue. He didn't rage. He just sighed, a sound of profound, exhausted acceptance. "I fired 6 people to save $10,000, he whispered, the number sounding massive, weighty now. And I had no idea that $10,000 was the only thing keeping the lights on. It wasn't the money, Brad," I corrected gently. "It was the lack of respect for the people who earned it. That was your mistake. You looked through us, and you didn't see the foundation." I straightened up. "Keep up the good work. We have a major presentation here next week, and I need this place pristine." "It will be," he promised. I walked toward my meeting, leaving him to his work. I didn't hate Brad anymore. I pitied him, but mostly I saw him as a successful rehabilitation project. He was learning the lesson that retirement failed to teach me. Purpose is found in the doing, not the title. As the months passed, Nexus Global continued its steady climb. I kept Veronica as CEO, focusing myself on strategic acquisitions and operational oversight. I was the silent partner, the operator who understood the infrastructure better than anyone. I never went back to wearing the blue uniform, but I never stopped thinking like the man who wore it. One evening I was closing up my third-floor office, getting ready for my nightly round. I noticed an anomaly on the maintenance schedule. The 55th floor storage room, my old secret office, was scheduled for a deep clean and reorganization. I decided to stop by. I took the service elevator up, the heavy metal box rattling slightly, just as it always had. I unlocked the door to the storage room. It was empty of my old secrets. No briefcases, no documents, just mops, buckets, and industrial air fresheners. It was spotless, organized, and smelling strongly of lemon. I pulled out a small worn wooden box from the bottom shelf, a box I had left behind months ago. Inside there were 3 things: my original faded blue uniform patch with the name Arthur stitched on it, the key to my old locker, and the thick sealed envelope Brad Cunningham had given me, the severance check for $500. I picked up the envelope. It felt heavy in my hand, a relic of a past life. I smiled, remembering Brad's smug face as he lectured me on cost savings. I didn't need the money. I never did. I pulled the uniform patch out of the box and slipped it into the inside pocket of my tailored suit jacket, a reminder of where I came from and why I was here. Then I turned the envelope over and finally tore it open. Inside, the check was still valid. I looked at the number, $1,487.33. I pulled out my phone and called Veronica. "Veronica, I need you to do one last thing for me regarding Brad Cunningham," I instructed. "The day porter? Is he causing trouble?" "No, he's doing great work, but I need to finalize his severance package." I paused, looking down at the check in my hand. "Take this amount, $1,287.33, and transfer it directly from my personal account into his new payroll account. No memo, no explanation. You're giving him back the severance he gave you?" Veronica sounded confused. "I am, but then I need you to immediately deduct that exact amount from his next week's paycheck." "Wait, you want to pay him and then take it right back?" "Exactly," I confirmed. "I want him to see the money appear and then disappear. I want him to know definitively that every single dollar counts, every line item matters, especially the ones he tried to erase." "Arthur," Veronica laughed, "that is the most passive-aggressive, perfect corporate move I have ever heard." "It's not passive-aggressive, Veronica," I corrected her, placing the now empty envelope back into the storage box. "It's just good accounting. I'm closing the books on Silent Artie, and I'm making sure the former CEO never forgets the cost of ignoring the small numbers." I hung up the phone. I locked the storage room door, leaving the box inside, a monument to the quiet war I had fought and won. I walked back down to the 3rd floor, into the comforting hum of the server room. I was no longer the janitor, but the lessons I learned in the shadows were the only ones that mattered. I had bought the company, but more importantly, I had restored the dignity of the work. And sometimes, the most satisfying profit isn't found on the P&L statement, but in the quiet, reflective moment when the man who fired you finally understands the true value of a job well done. I was the owner now, but I still knew exactly where the dust collected, and I made sure every single corner of Nexus Global stayed clean. That was my job, and that was enough.